where it tells you they went out and preached to the Jews and the Jews only. Everywhere they went evangelizing, it was to the Jews and the Jews only. Not to us heathen, not to us dogs or beasts of the field. But listen, what Christ did in that temple, he turns around and he says, you see all of these stones? Do you understand how this thing was built with all these rocks? He said, there will not be one stone left upon another. You understand what I just said? He was speaking of the destruction not his own body, but even that temple. It happened in the year 70 AD. A Roman king, conqueror, a military king, decided to overrun Jerusalem, and he did. He took it, captured it, killed, ravished the women. He did everything in evilness and wickedness toward the Jews that could be done. He tore the temple down, not just disabling it a little bit, not just injuring it a little bit, but some way or another, he just had such a spiteful grudge against the temple that he tore it down brick by block, by rock, by stone. Everything that was built, every famous, beautiful thing in it was destroyed by Titus. That was a signifying thing that God did it. God did not want a temple wherein the law was being practiced anymore. He didn't want sacrifices of animals anymore. He didn't want priests sitting in there that were filthier and dirtier and unclean. Dirty, I'm not talking about little specks of dirt on the hands. I'm talking about in their mind, undermining, cheating people. Listen, the priesthood did things that they shouldn't be doing, and especially being the person or the tribe that was to negotiate things with God for the rest of the 11 tribes. What they were negotiating was the sacrifices and the weightiness of the sin, the balance of what you did and what you owe, what you have to sacrifice to God. Listen, when God allowed that destruction of that temple, and he wanted it to go away, to be disappeared, abolished, not to be practiced any longer. He didn't want the Jews having a tribe of Levi setting in authority and in power. He did not want animals took up there and their throats slit and catch the blood and poured around the altar any longer. He didn't want the altar of incense burning and cook some of that meat, and the priest would eat some and he would eat some, and then that would give someone a clear conscience until he done something else wrong, and he have to repeat step by step by step the same process over and over and over again. No, Christ did not want that temple overshadowing what he did. What did Christ do? He come, and everything that was built upon the temple itself, the law, the prophets, all of the sacrifices, all of the holy days, all of the feast days, all of the Sabbaths, all of the tithing, and everything that went on in the realm of this temple, God wanted to abolish it, to destroy it, so that it would not be that way, to torment, to always be like a pussy womb, a pussy like a stick in your hand, a big splinter, and then it trying to heal up, and you don't remove the stick, the object, and your body's trying to heal, and all of a sudden it gets infected and things of this nature. What happened? God wanted to remove it all. He didn't want nothing overshadowing the work of the cross, the work of His only begotten Son of God. He didn't want anything in comparison to what man, heathen, beast of the field, ignorant people, unlearned people, He didn't want nothing that they conjured up in their mind through their imagination of their evil heart. He didn't want anything brought into the form of salvation as a free gift. He didn't want nothing to seem like it was earned by the believer. That I did, I completed, I finished. No. You got the wrong noun in there. You got the wrong pronoun in there. It ain't what you did. It's what Christ did. He allowed that Roman governor, king, soldier to kill everything that remained in Jerusalem that had anything to do with Jews. He allowed that temple to be completely destroyed, unrecognizable. He didn't want nothing to come out of that to keep haunting and taunting and provoking the work of the cross.
Amen.
The work of the cross. Can't you see? Can't you see what Christ did? How far He went? Can't you understand with your mind? Are you so dark and are you so evil? Are you so caught up that you cannot see what the work of the cross accomplished, what it fulfilled and what it abolished and what it did? There is no man that can save himself. You understand me? If you don't trust and put your full 100% faith in the work that Christ did on the cross, you're going to be lost.
Amen.
There ain't no hope for you. There ain't no prayer that can save you until you believe on the only begotten Son of God.
Amen.
The 12, they left. They went out into the Jewish world preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Now, I want to show you something here. They was preaching the gospel of the kingdom. It's clear what Peter says in Acts 2, 3, 4. It's clear what the message that's coming out of them. That they ought to believe on Jesus, this Jew. But I want to show you something. In the end of that 7 years, which I feel completed a generation, Jesus 33, the 12, 7, completed the message to the Jews. What they attempted and purposed to do in their lives, it completed a message of a generation. It was in fulfillment. But I want you to understand, at the end of that 40 years, it was along about the time frame between Acts chapter 8, Acts chapter 9, Acts chapter 10, right in the end of that 40-year generation. There is a Jew called, and his name is Saul, in Acts chapter 9. There is set before him an open door to not the Jews, the Gentiles, the heathen, the beast of the field. For the very first time in the history of this book of the King James Version of the Bible, we will see that there is a man that is sent from God to preach to the heathen, the beast of the field. There's never ever been a prophet back here, not a holy man back here, that's ever been set apart from Israel to go out into the world and preach to the heathen, the beast of the field. But in Acts chapter 9, that's what you'll find. Acts chapter 9 was located right in at the end of the 40-year period. A completion of a generation of Jesus, fulfilling. The 12 took upon them his ministry. Jesus said, the things I do, you'll do, and even greater, because I ascend back unto my Father. He said, you'll go out, cast out devils, heal the sick, raise the dead, and the things that you've seen me do, I'm going to do through you greater. Greater and greater. Why? Because there was 12 of them. It was just one Jesus, but there was 12 of them. They went forth in that 7-year period throughout all the Jewish community, preaching and teaching in the name of Jesus. Preaching and teaching the gospel of the kingdom. Preaching and teaching, fulfilling just exactly what Jesus said to do. And that's what they did. And then all of a sudden, it's a different time. It's a different dispensation. Here we got this Apostle Paul coming out of Judaism himself, called to go out into the beast of the field and to preach and teach a gospel. Now listen, how many gospels are there? How many gospels do you know of? How many gospels are being preached today? How many doctrines, commandments, ordinances, laws, how many sacrifices are they requiring of you today? Every religion, every denomination has just a little bit different or perverted or added to or diminished from gospel. You understand that? None of their gospels coincide with one another perfectly, because all of them have different religions and backgrounds and traditions. The law ended at the cross of Calvary. That message was not known of by the 12. They went forth preaching and teaching, and still Peter was keeping the law. In them first 8 chapters of the book of Acts, the temple is alive and well. The Jews are still doing sacrifice. They're still keeping Sabbath. They're still observing 7 feast days in the yearly calendar of the Jews. They're still paying tithes. They're still committing all of these animal sacrifices day in and day out, and for 7 years, under the preaching of the 12 to the Jews, the temple operates, and they still do Moses' law. The problem that the 12 had was taking the law out of their life, laying it down, never to pick it up again, and that they accepted God's free grace gospel. You understand what I'm saying to you? While the 12 was preaching in Acts 2 to Acts 8, the 12 are preaching and teaching that Jesus was the King, that He was the King of a kingdom that was going to come. What hope did they have of that? The hope that when they're standing there watching Jesus ascend back into heaven, 2 angels say, this same Jesus you see go away is coming again in like manner. That's what they're preaching. That's what they're teaching. We stood and saw Jesus ascend back into heaven. They expected him to come back the next day, the next day, the next day. And when he didn't come after 2 or 3 years, they were still expecting him to come back, come back. Their whole teaching and their whole preaching and the whole system of what they believed was that Jesus was coming back to set up an earthly kingdom, fleshly kingdom for the Jews, not knowing that they had done crucified their king, not knowing that the works and the deeds of the flesh had been fulfilled and accomplished, and the purpose of them had now been and would be given spiritually to the Apostle Paul.
Amen.
And it would be given to a brand new bunch of people. And that people would be Gentiles. Nowhere before ever spoke of salvation coming to the Gentiles. And if it had been, it would have been by the works of the law. It would have been, well, you Gentiles will have to do the works of the law. That's what they called proselyting, that the Jews would finally convince, and a few of the Gentiles' hearts would surrender to the works and the deeds of the law. So therefore, they learned to do them, and that they were accepted as proselytes. But listen to Jesus' words to them. Jesus said, "Woe be unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You compass," that means go over, you cover, land and sea to convert one proselyte. And when you get him converted, in other words, listen, you make him a twofold child of hell more than yourselves. That means the things you're teaching him, the things you're learning him, the things you're telling him to do and practice, it's making him twofold. He was already a child of hell when he was a heathen. Now you made him twofold child of hell when you doctrinate him by the dead works and the deeds of the law and put him under the same curse as the Jews were under.
Amen.
The works and the deeds of the law were unto Israel a curse, the curse of death, because they realized that no one could keep them perfectly. But I want you to know this, that what the 12 did in completion of a 40-year period, preaching to the Jews only, that was the will of God. That was the purpose. And I really, really believe that in that 7-year time that the 12 were preaching, that they, in that time frame, was sealed 144,000 Jews. That's what I believe. I don't think you can disprove me wrong. You can argue with me, and you can laugh at me. But I'll tell you this much. Only Jews were being saved. Only Jews. 12,000 of 12 tribes. God's perfect. God's always correct. God's always in a system. Them 12 preached to the Jews, and out of those 12's preaching, 144,000 Jews were saved. 12,000 of each of the 12 sons of Jacob. That had to be. Read Revelation. And it also had to be, after that, John said, I looked, and he said, behold, a number, which no man, a multitude, no man could number, but God only. And he said, I said to the angel, who are these? And he said, these are they that came out of great tribulation and have received the testimony of Jesus Christ. And white robes was given unto them. You understand what I'm saying to you? Gentiles, a multitude, more than ever could be saved into Jews because of their stubbornness, their hard-headedness, their contrariness. Listen, go back and read Isaiah. Isaiah had a vision. He had a dream. And in that, Isaiah said, pull up your tent stakes enlarge the borders of your garment, of the tent of where they dwelled. Make them bigger. Spread them out. Expand them. Go way, way out. You know why? Because the Gentiles are coming in. That's that number that no man could know. No man could understand. But God only. You see what I'm saying? The book fits. The King James Version fits. But so many people are disassembling it, and they'll read one scripture here and skip the rest of the chapter, or maybe the rest of the book, and take it over here and try to make a doctrine out of it. Acts 2:38. You try to make a doctrine out of it. You try to make a doctrine out of communion. You try to make doctrines out of things that Christ was doing, fulfilling the law. The night before he was killed, he done the Lord's Supper, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, is what that feast was. All of the things that Christ did, he finished, fulfilled, abolished, took it out of the way, covered it with what? By what power did he have, and authority did he have that he could take away the law? Because of the power of his resurrection from the dead, and because of the power of his blood that ran out on the law and the prophets, the ordinances, the commandments, the doctrines, the principalities, the holy days, the Sabbaths, the feast day, because his blood blotted them things out. Read Colossians 2:14. Read the rest of it. It tells you where he done away with the Sabbaths. It tells you where he done away with the holy days and feast days. But you won't let it go. You still, just like the stubborn Jews were, go back and pick you out a day here. You observe the Feast of Dedication, the birth of Jesus, yeah? The restoring of the temple, that's what that meant. The Feast of Lights, where great light had come. Yeah, you observe that. And you put all your heathen traditions and paganisms and idols and graven images to that and call it Christmas. Yeah, you still observe Passover. That's where Jesus was killed. That's where the blood was shed. That's where the law was finished. But you take that day and you add all your idols to it. You add all of your inventions of your evil mind and the imaginations of your evil heart to it, and you go out and bestow in the world of things of idols and graven images, and teach your children that rabbits lay colored eggs and that Santa Clauses can fly with reindeers, and you teach them things by tradition that wouldn't even stand in Jewish doctrine today, let alone in heathenism and paganism. But yet, you keep these feast days and holy days and Sabbaths and things alive. You think Sunday's a Sabbath, you're brainwashed. If you think Saturday's a Sabbath, you don't know where the end of it come. Christ was the end of that day observance. Now, we, as believers in the work of the cross, we set down. We don't worry about works and deeds of the law. We have rested. We're in a rest of trying to save ourselves. We are in a rest of trying to say how good we are and brag and boast in the works that we do. No, you're still bragging and boasting, and you're still promoting the works and the deeds of the flesh. You, my friend, have took it upon yourself to save yourself by traditions, by foolishness, by things that you have heard by church doctrine. The first church came into existence after the law, after the Reformation, after that this book is analyzed. Moses' law, the sacrifices and the things, they're removed. They finally accept that we're not killing animals any longer. They finally accept that we're not doing these things any longer as far as the works of trying through blood sacrifices and animal sacrifices to save ourselves. Yeah, that's what you really, really do. But the church in 325 AD reformed It made a great big taking away of some and promoting of others. But they still kept works and deeds and traditions of the law. And they kept it where it should have been allowed to be nailed to the cross of Christ, but yet people insist. They persist. I mean, they're not going to allow it to be took out of their evil heart here because they've been taught it, and the fear of not keeping it is in them, and they don't think that God's going to punish them for doing it. Well, I'm telling you, the problem with the world today is there is no fear of God before the whole world. That's the problem, because I have fear in me that if I'm caught doing these foolish things, and if I'm caught in my dead works, and I find myself under the curse, and I find myself that I'm keeping some laws and breaking some laws, I fear, because I brought myself under that curse. Christ didn't put that curse on me. The church did. Denominations did. Religions did. Those are the ones that are promoting the law of Moses that Christ came to die and fulfill. He did. He finished it. Apostle Paul's grace gospel is the only thing to close out the end time generation, and it's just about over, friend.
Amen.
Well, I see time's come and gone again. I hope and pray that you get something out of this radio broadcast, or whether you view these tapes on the YouTube or on the Facebook. But you can get a hold of me if you'd like a copy of this CD or any other CDs. All you have to remember are the dates of it. Like today will be 5/7/17, May the 7th, 17. But these are free. Pass these CDs out or deliver them or mail them to you free. My name is Bobby Carman. I live at Hardinsburg, Kentucky. My phone number is 270-756-6784. My address over there is P.O. Box 743, Hardinsburg, Kentucky, 40143. And we'd like to announce in probably the next week or so that we're going to have Bible study. We will be announcing the dates. It's probably going to be around the 21st and the 28th of May. And then the first 2 weeks of June, which will be around the 4th and the 11th. But anyway, we'll be announcing those dates of them Bible studies in Pritchard Community Center at E-Town a little bit later on. But if you would like to hear some more preaching or teaching, just call me, tell me your address. I'll mail these CDs to you. It won't cost you a penny. Until next week, God bless you is my prayer.